All right, so DADA is it's a platform, a place in which people speak to each other through drawings. So what you see here is every panel is made by a different person, and you know, there's nothing like it, online, offline, like there's never been anything like this. It's a way of communicating visually. So it gives a very unique kind of feeling and kind of community. So let's see if this works. Yeah, so I just want to say that, you know, after we've been working on the visual economy for 2 years and during COVID, and so this is the first time I actually presenting the invisible economy in front of the people who have been building this with us. And this and so it's very touching, actually. It's very special. So these are some of them. There are many other people who have been working, trying to figure out the invisible economy, trying to understand concepts, trying to challenge assumptions, deliberating, drawing on data every day, every week, hours and hours for years now. And so the thing is that nobody ever has been remunerated for the work they do, for the contributions to the community. And to this, I want to say, but why? Why? Like, you know, we're so used to thinking that people, you know, need incentives to do things. You need money, you need, you know, some kind of token to bribe people so that they actually want to do something in your project. But all of us, many people have been working together and contributing so much just for intrinsic rewards. So we're living the invisible economy, and maybe a way of understanding what we're doing, at some point in our deliberations, we came across this concept. I'm not a technologist, so the concept of the local maximum. So that it's this concept of these mountains, these hills, in which you think that you're going to the summit of the hill. That's where you think that you want to go. And once you get there, you realize that there is another hill, and you really want to go there. And so for us, in a way, we can explain it that the first hill is the current system, is a system that is optimized for money. And this is, you know, the art market, the traditional art market, but it's also the crypto art market. Any market functions that way. And so we are all told that if we make money, if we are successful, we are free and we are independent and we can have, you know, travel around and do all these things. But in my experience, I was an entrepreneur, I was a CEO, I had offices in New York, in Latin America, I traveled everywhere. The more successful I was, the least free I felt, the more responsibilities I had, the more, like sort of oppressed I felt. And so the invisible economy is really like challenge every single assumption that we have. And what we have found is now that I'm not a CEO, I'm a psycho-CEO, because you have to be a little bit psychopathic to, to be successful. It's finding a community in which you have a safe space to be who you are. And without having a goal, without guidelines, without anything that means that you have to do X to get Y, but only by being there. And so one thing that we realize is that what we're doing is optimizing. We're not creating a platform, it's not a marketplace, it's all of those things, but it's really a system. So we're building a socioeconomic system that is optimized to protect those intrinsic motivations, those relations, and the art, in the case of our community, to protect that. And that's the main goal. So DADA, to explain it quickly, is It's a simple platform. We have a shitty tool. That tool, we all draw with the same shitty tool, but we do wonderful things. And so you just reply to a drawing and add to the conversation. And so what is beautiful about it is that all these people from all over the world that don't know each other, different backgrounds, socioeconomic, status, age, very different, are collaborating together, making art together, and communicating to each other, all motivated by the intrinsic rewards. So there are thousands of these conversations on DADA. And the challenge that we had, we started in 2014, and we were trying to figure out, okay, so how do you make this community sustainable, or the company, in the case when we were a company, without destroying the very thing that makes this community so creative and so beautiful. Because we knew that as soon as we brought a brand, let's commission work from Coca-Cola, well, it's like then you destroy the entire thing. And so this is a community that is a platform that is completely open. DADA is 100% open to anyone who wants to jump in. We have no sanctions, no flagging, no vetting of any type. And it's a community in which there is no trolling or bullying. In fact, you won't find dick pics, and it's probably the only drawing platform without dick pics. And so there is a secret to this, right? There is a mindset in the way we design things. And so in 2017, trying to figure out how we actually create this decentralized community, I ran into Ethereum and decentralized hubs, and then I fall in love immediately, because back then the ethos of Ethereum were actually very idealistic. And so CryptoPunks just had came out, we talked to them, we used their smart contracts, we modified the smart contracts, and we launched the Grips and Weirdos, which is now a historical collection of NFTs, because it's one of the few in 2017 before CryptoKitties. And one of the big important innovations of these collections was that we coded royalties for artists for the first time in NFT history. And even back then, we were already thinking, 70% goes to the artist, 30% goes to the DADA fund to be distributed to everyone, and including the collectors on the secondary market. So that's what we were thinking back then. In the Rare Art Fest, there was this festival in January 18 when everybody came together for the first time. It was like the thing that sort of the revolution started there. And I remember I talked about visiting Chile, 3 of our main artists back then, Cromo, Boris, and Otro Captore, and living with them for a week, just drawing and everywhere. And I realized after some time that we were not really going to any restaurants, we weren't eating that much, and I was like, well, this is a bohemian life. But it turned out that they didn't have any money, and they didn't tell me. So this is the kind of cost that when you decide to be an artist, a true artist, not the ones that go and set, they think of themselves as brands, but the ones that make that deliberate choice of not being part of the market. And so how do we create a sustainable or a safety net for those kind of artists? And so we're thinking, could we do something like basic income for somebody like Raul, who was 75 years old back then, and so that he can do the comics, no strings attached, and he can do, at that age, you should be able to do whatever you want without worrying about paying rent, right? So, at the same time, that same day, and this is January 18, I realized that really this was going to be all about speculation. We were already seeing, everybody was just focusing on the sales, and nobody was focusing on actual innovation that was happening. So we decided not to participate in the market and just focus on token economies and governance and the things that are like hardcore, like difficult to crack. And so we just did a collaboration with Crypto Kitty Hats, did a lot of experimentation back then. Started at every event, started experimenting with a new collection, tokenizing things in new ways. We did this channel auction. Basically, people were bidding as the art was being created in real time. And we tokenized that, and we sold it, and we did, experiments with displays and live drawing performance at big events like Ethereum Summit with people all over the world. And we did a lot of experimentations. DADA GAN, this is a GAN model, artificial intelligence that create drawings out of the over 100,000 drawings that are on DADA. And all of this was in November 2019, the first time NFTs were showcased in a big museum, were actually made there, and we sold the sketches that we did. So all this experimentation, at the same time, we would really focus on ethics, on changing. Now we're in 2020, there is the Black Matter movement happening, and we tokenized the faces of all these policemen who were, because we realized there was a wall of silence around them, and so to use blockchain and its permanence as a way of protest police brutality. And then at the same time, I was really focused on understanding why is it that the system that we have gives the outcomes that we get, extreme inequality. Is meritocracy really real? Like how it's meritocracy when it's coincide with extreme inequality? What are these star systems? Can we make a different type of star system where not only a few capture most of the rewards? And so a lot of deep, and was writing a paper and understood, it became very clear that it's not just the market, it's a lot more, it's the environment, it's the money. Like even, what would any of you do if you don't have to think about money? If there is a world without money, let's say we have a universal basic income, what will you do with your time? What will you do with your art or your work or your code? So we presented the paper in June 2020, and from there we couldn't raise money to hire people to do this, because obviously that was the whole point. We had to prove that it was possible for people to contribute just by intrinsic rewards. And so the paper has there's a very essential part that is and this has like 50 decades of research. At the moment that you replace intrinsic motivations by extrinsic, especially if they're expected rewards, the intrinsic motivations diminish or disappear completely. And so you're talking about the sense of community, my sense of autonomy, the curiosity that I have to do something, all of that disappears and even kills creativity. So we're talking about something that is extremely damaging to art and to innovation. And so the paper basically is a hypothesis in which we said, then in order to protect the intrinsic rewards, the intrinsic motivations we all have, we have to radically separate the market from anything we do. And if we do that, so what do we have? What is it that we get then? What do we want? And so it was a little bit of thinking in terms of this balance between freedom and the community, freedom and fairness. Like that balance meaning, can I be the best that I can be? Can I hone my skills, my talents, and at the same time put it for the community? And can we balance intrinsic and extrinsic rewards? So do we have a safety net so that we can actually pursue my intrinsic motivations? Because if we don't have food on the table, you can't really do it. So we had these working groups that became sense-making sessions just to understand and deliberate, and we've been doing this for 2 years now, every week. Anyone here is welcome to join. Really talking about all these complex concepts, and one like ground truth appear, and it's that we all, it's not just artists, it's everyone. We all have needs, and those needs could be let's say, fulfilled by extrinsic rewards, or could be fulfilled by intrinsic, and those are two different paths. And so in our case, it's like the action that I take is my own reward. If I draw on data and reply to someone, it's fulfilling to me, and I do it just for that. And at the same time, it's a contribution to the community. And so when you think about those ways, for the artist, it's about letting go, because what I do becomes part of the commons, becomes part of everyone else. We don't have private property. But when you think in terms of collectors, it's not about reselling. It's not your private property. It's more about gifting to the community, means holding that art. You want the people who fall in love with your work to keep it, not to sell it. Right? So can we find a system in which that's possible? So we went into a whole rabbit hole, thanks to Shebnem here, who is our token engineer, he's very involved in token engineering, and our computer scientist. And yes, yeah. Which also shows that it's not just artists, it's everyone who needs that kind of freedom. And so we understood what our environment is. It gives a completely different outcome than the market. We all feel fulfilled. This is why we're doing this. This is why we keep doing it. It's an incredible feeling. And I, as an ex-entrepreneur and ex-CEO, that what we have done so far is the deep knowledge that we have gained, and everything we've done, it would have been impossible. It would have been impossible if I was a CEO under a company structure, when you're like just focused on making money. It's just not possible at all. And so, how much time do you have? Okay, perfect. So to tell you a little bit of how that works, I hope it's not too abstract, but let's try it. So one thing then when we talk about intrinsic rewards is like, okay, so how you measure that? How you measure love, the passion that you have by doing something. How you cannot have a leaderboard of who is more generous, because that's then it's, right? So we realized that you don't have to measure it, you just have to represent it, you have to make it visible. So we been experimenting in visualizing these things, and this was one experiment that we did when we did a live drawing performance in Rome, and did a simple legend and asked people how they felt before and after, and then these are the portraits of how everyone felt in that particular event. So you can start to get an idea that it's not even in relation to anyone. It's unique. It's your own experience. It doesn't have to be I'm better than you, or I'm more generous, or I was more happy than you. It's more this is how I felt. And so you can go deep, deep, and this is thanks to Isa, where is Isa, who visualized everything for us. We started thinking about what kind of data, warm data, can we get from our ecosystem, because we're living it. So we know what feels right or what feels wrong. And so maybe it works as a sensing mechanism of when maybe we're getting too much into something and we're not even realizing that we're stressed. Or how do we do governance? What's the kind of how we make decisions? We don't do voting. We've never done it, and it works beautifully. So what is the structure of this kind of more free type of governance? We have mapped a whole journey of how you get from the current mindset to this mindset. how you get into more the commons, not transactional. And so we have a pretty good idea now how it feels, except that we got an ape storm from our historical collection. I got a bunch of like hundreds and hundreds of people storming our contract and buying NFTs, so it made us have to go back to the market. And now, and then we actually adopted 300 apes as a result to feel a little bit better. But you can see the value. This is the value we have created over the years. All the pink is actually innovation. And all of that is value that belongs to the entire community. These are the commons. And what we're doing now is an exit to the community with a token, the usual thing that they do in the blockchain, but it's really managed by the invisible economy. The creative decisions, the main decisions, the ethical decisions are all through the invisible economy. And so these guys have already years of security, thanks of this journey that we have been together. Raul is getting an income every month. He can do whatever he wants. And, and I have to say that none of them had to do anything. No self-promotion, no market, no Twitter, no Instagram, nothing. They just drew and did what they loved. And this is a journey within those. We know now that there is a third hill in which you can actually don't have to commoditize anything, where art doesn't have to be sold, where we don't have to sold or rent our time, and in which we can optimize, not just protect, but optimized for intrinsic rewards and intangible values. Thank you. All right, any questions?
When you say all the artwork is held in the commons, are you taking a Creative Commons Zero type of license from an intellectual property perspective, or something different?
No, Creative Commons, in fact, it's like, I mean, NFTs, one thing that we should think about is that it gives the opportunity to get Creative Commons further, things that they couldn't do back then. So you can think about legitimizing remixing and collaboration, and right? Because you can now trace everybody. There's no reason to stay on the scarcity thing. But in our case, it's really like everything is the commons. So when we say exit to community, this is not a stupid governance tokens. That is really a financial instrument. This is truly, we are distributing ownership of the entire thing. This means the platform, all the drawings, over 150,000. This means the NFT collections were all very valuable because they're all historic. This means the community, like everything that you see as a valuation in a company that usually goes to the funders and investors is going to everybody who has contributed. And what you have to think is that people think like, well, why am I going to give my thing to the commons? But what you're not really thinking is that you give your thing to the commons, it's now everybody's, but now everybody else's thing is also mine. And so it's exponential. It's a way of creating wealth together. We don't depend, we actually didn't need money to create the invisible economy. And we got investors, with all the NFT boom, to invest $1 million, $5 million, and we say no, because we didn't need it, and they couldn't understand it. But this is a way of creating wealth together, that is very special.
What do you think the biggest challenges to adoption of the invisible economy are?
Okay, so first of all, I want to say that James and David love you, and Anya and Deja, we started writing the first line of the invisible economy in Manchester in an event that they organized, and they were there when I first presented like a sort of sketch of an idea. That was 2 years ago, 3. So we don't think like that. We don't even think in terms of onboarding people, like you get it or you don't get it. You have to find your own way. It is about intrinsic reward. So we don't need to scale. We have already in the fund, the DADA fund has enough for, probably for a few years for all this entire community, and more. So it's more about how we capture value, and not just one value, not the value that the market understands, which is only what they can put a price to, but all the value, how you capture it. And so there is no need to grow exponentially. It's more about going deep. So for me, it's not about going fast and breaking things and grow. It's the opposite. And I think actually in blockchain, we should think the opposite. It's like going slow and deep. Okay, thank you so much.